But I want to start by exploring another psychotechnology that's been around for millennia, which is shamanism.
Yes.
In your book, Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, you say shamanism is the first psychotechnology. It's a kind of anthropological origin story for the project of meaning in life, and therefore also for the meaning crisis. The way it altered our state of consciousness and cognition led to the philosophical and scientific enterprise. The capacity to turn scrutinous inquiry on worldly phenomena and take a perspective on our existence. We see evidence of sacred and symbolic activity in shamanic cultivation, which continues to be present in human society. So the current perception of shamanism among many people is just an exotic experience. Or we'll go to the Amazon jungle, take ayahuasca. But I want to now create some historical context. How was shamanism one of the first ways of wisdom cultivation in history?
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question, but I think my answer points towards an attitude or stance I take towards the first thing you said. I'm very critical of sort of shamanic tourism, ayahuasca tourism. I think tourism is antithetical to pilgrimage, and we could talk about that later. So shamanism, I think shamanism is the ancestor of a lot of siblings. Leo Ferrar and I talked about this in the chapter we did on mindfulness and hypnosis. There's elements of our capacity for self-suggestion that we see in hypnosis. You see it in the placebo effect, which is very, very powerful. So we have this enormous capacity to auto-suggest, to use, it's like people need, I mean, I think Michael Levin is going to help us understand this, but people need to step back and not treat the placebo effect as the garbage can, but treat it as like, holy crap, what's going on there? Like imagine that you see a guy in a lab coat and he gives you something, and because he's in a lab coat and you have abstract ideas about science and authority, that somehow makes, right, your cancer diminish. Like, come on, just pay attention to that. That's really that. So I want you to hear the full blown reaching deeply into the mysterious guts of the placebo effect when I say shamanism has aspects of hypnosis in it. Shamanism has aspects of what you can do in meditation, where you can step back and become aware of your cognition. It has that aspect in it. It has aspects of contemplation, where you can see in an imaginally enhanced way more deeply into patterns in the world. And the shamanic state is somehow all of those, the common answer, and we sort of separate them out. And, there are meditative practices, and there are concentration practices, and there are contemplative practices, and there are hypnotic practices, and the shaman is doing all of those at once. It's the common ancestor. At least that's what I'm proposing. That's what I'm arguing. For all of what we have, all of the more, it's almost like the common ancestor to a bunch of species. All of these, mindfulness and hypnotic and trance, all these species have their root in shamanism. Shamanism also, I don't know if it's the ancestor or it's the first significant appropriation of the flow state. So the shaman is not only doing something that's like hypnosis and like meditation and like contemplation, the shaman is doing something like jazz in the flow state and is doing it with narrative and with states of consciousness and picking up. He's jazzing on social connectedness within the group, or she's jazzing, because sometimes shaman can be a woman.